as soon as this function here run, it will start reading this file in the background without blocking the rest of the code execution. Let me actually show you this here. Let's write console.log octacoder will read file. So what do you think will happen now? What log are we gonna see the first? Hello guys, welcome to OctaCoder. Today we are diving into the fascinating realm of synchronous and asynchronous file handling. In this video, you are gonna learn how to read data from file and also how to write data into file using asynchronous techniques in Node.js and also a callback concept. Without further ado, let's dive right into this enlightening session and discover the wonders of file handling. So in this video we are gonna read files and write to files just like before, but instead in an asynchronous way. Okay, so this is a piece of code that we wrote in last lecture. We learned how to read files synchronously using readFile sync function for reading, and we also learned how to write data into file synchronously using writeFile sync function. But here each statement is basically processed one after another, line by line. In this example, first the file system module is required. Then the file read, and then we log the result to the console. So you see that each line of code basically waits for the result of the previous line. And this can become a problem especially with slow operation because each line blocks the execution of the rest of the code. This is why we say that synchronous code is also called blocking code, because again a certain operation can only be executed after the one before has finished. Imagine you have a web server and user requests a large file with synchronous file operations. The server would be stuck, unable to serve any other request until the file is completely read or written. And because of the way Node.js was designed, this can lead to poor performance and unresponsive application. This turns into a huge problem. So the solution to this problem in Node.js is to use asynchronous, non-blocking code. So in an asynchronous code, we upload heavy work, basically be work on in the background, and then once that work is done, a callback function that we registered before is called to handle the result. And during all that time, the result of the code can still be executing without being blocked by the heavy task which is now running in the background. So what this means is that we can effectively defer our reaction into the future in order to make the code non-blocking, and this is of course much better. So now we will learn about asynchronous, which is non-blocking file system. So let's add comment. This is the blocking synchronous way, and now we will do exercise in a non-blocking asynchronous way. Again, we need the fs module and then read file. But this time not read file sync like we use in synchronous way here. In asynchronous, we just use read file. Okay, and again we pass the path to the file first argument, and so again it is txt/start.txt. So this is the file I want. Our goal is to read this read octa, okay, and second argument encoding UTF-8. In previous lecture we learned why we need UTF. If you haven't watched that video, so please go and watch it, okay? And so the next parameter is the third one will be a callback function. That is what we learned in last lecture. So Node.js is all built around callback in order to implement an asynchronous behavior. So Node will start reading this file here in the background, and as soon as it is ready, it will start the callback function that we specify here. And it calls this callback function with two arguments. The first one is the error and the second one is the actual data. What matters here is that the error is usually always the first one. Okay, and so let's test it out. Let's simply log through console.log data. Let's execute in terminal by running command node index.js. And here we see read octa. So let's analyze again what happened here. As soon as this function here run, it will start reading this file in the background without blocking the rest of the code execution. Let me actually show you this here. Let's write console.log octacoder will read file. So what do you think will happen now? What log are we gonna see the first? Okay, so let's comment out this previous code so you'll not get confusion. Let me comment out this code here. Okay, so what do you think will happen now? What log are we gonna see the first? Okay, let's run the command again. And indeed, first we see octacoder will read file, and only then we see read octa. Why did that happen? So as I mentioned, Node.js will start reading the file in the background here and will not block the code and will then immediately move on to the next line of code, and the next line of code is this log here. So that is the first thing that will be logged here to the terminal. Only then when a file is completely read, this callback function here will run, and this callback function has access to the error and data that was read. So only then this console.log will run with the data, so with the text that was in the file, and so that's why we see this here as the second log. So let's do another read file so that I can show you we can do multiple steps one after other with callback. So steps that depend upon the result of the previous step. So that's why actually in the start file I have read octa, because there is a file called read octa which has the content that we are actually interested in. So let's copy this code and put it in here, and I'm gonna call this one data1 and this data2. So the result of the second step will depend on the first one. So here we are doing a template string now, because we need to put in that variable, and it is called dollar curly braces data1. So data1 will be read octa, and so then in the next step we read txt slash read octa.txt, which is then this file content. So that's why this file name here is the same as here read octa. And let's log console.log data2, and let's quickly test if this works. Node index.js, enter, and indeed, so that is the content of read octa.txt. I'm gonna do is to add another read file here. So this one is called append.txt, and this one data3 and data3 here. So let's run again, and so now we have these two results here. And now finally, as the last step, I want to write these two strings together into a file. So far we have only read file, but now we will learn write file as well. So let's do here as well. So fs.writeFile. We are not using the synchronous one like we did here for writeFile sync. But now just like here and here and here, we use the asynchronous version, not the synchronous one. So txt slash final.txt and text encoding UTF-8, and then this one also accepts a callback function. But in this case, there is no data that we read, and so we don't need to argument. So the only argument that we have is the error. So here we have error and data that was read, but here in writeFile there is no data. All that there is an error. And here we missing something here, which is what we actually want to write to the file. So that is the second argument, and what that is data 2 and data 3. So again template string here and dollar data 2, then a new line character /n and then data 3. So here is to simply log through console that your file has been written. And let's clear the console and run again. And indeed we see your file has been written. And let's check we have the content here. So that is how we perform multiple steps in orders using callback function. Because imagine that you simply did the same file read and then the second file read, this one right after that. Well, how would you then get access to the data from the first one? And so if you see this triangular pattern emerges, it is actually called CallBack Hell, or some people call it a pyramid of doom. And there are some solutions to make this code here more readable and better to understand. But for now that doesn't matter at all for you. What matters is the Node.js is built around this philosophy of callback. So that is how Node.js implement asynchronous operation. So that's it. So here I don't want to create all of these error handlers here. Let's say in this situation there was an error. So let's say if error and return from this function and console.log error. So let's change here start ttt and run this again, and we have this error now. And if we put it normal, well, then everything works just like before. And that's it. That's all for this tutorial. If you found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more coding tutorial. Happy coding!